Well, CBN News chief political analyst David Brody is with us. And David, we've got 3 million Georgians who've already voted. The total of eligible voters is just 5.4 million. Is there anybody left to vote?
Well, that 3 million represents about 40% or so of registered voters in Georgia. That's huge. As a matter of fact, it's a record, Gordon, as you might imagine. The last record they had, the record standing was 2 million or so back in 2008. So this is going to eclipse that big time. And Democrats are clearly going to have the advantage in early voting. That typically is how it is. So we'll wait and see. You know, Eric mentioned, he mentioned that the president will be in Georgia later today, along with Joe Biden. I will say this, that there's a reason Donald Trump is not only going to Georgia, but he's going to Northwest Georgia, in Dalton, Georgia. That is a conservative stronghold. That's where the turnout needs to happen. Watch that. Northwest Georgia on Tuesday night.
Republican David Perdue had to self-quarantine in the final days because he was exposed. And is that going to have any impact?
You know, I think ultimately it will not, Gordon. I think everybody is pretty much locked and loaded, if you will, as to where you stand. I mean, look, there's been so much money in this race, so much energy, time, media attention, that if you don't quite know where you stand now, you probably either A, haven't been paying attention, or B, don't care. And so I think at this point, the fact that David Perdue is in quarantine won't really matter. As a matter of fact, he won't even be at Donald Trump's rally later today in Dalton, or later tonight, I should say, in Dalton, Georgia. So I don't think it makes much of a difference. I think everybody pretty much knows how they're going to vote at this point.
Okay, well, let's turn to the phone call to Georgia that's dominated the news headlines over the past 24 hours. Is that going to sort of shut down the senators who want to challenge the presidential election?
No, not at all. I mean, they're going full throttle on this. You know, there's going to be two schools of thought as to how the president said what he said on the phone call. And here we go again with a phone call. First it was Ukraine, and now it's the Secretary of State in Georgia, who, by the way, taped the phone call. Not necessarily a very moral thing to do, if you will, but that's a whole separate issue. Look, these senators are going forward. There are 13 of them. There could be more by January 6th. You know, remember, Gordon, when we first started, and we've been talking about this since November, early November, and we said they just needed one U.S. House member and one U.S. Senator to throw this into a debate into the House and Senate. They're not just getting one. They're getting 13 U.S. senators on one side and over 140 U.S. congressmen on the other. So Donald Trump's going to get his day in court, if you will, and I put that in air quotes. It won't be a court, but it will be the court of public opinion. It will be the House and Senate where some of that evidence will be laid out. But it's not just evidence. A lot of people think, wait a minute, hold on, evidence, dead people voting, all that. We're not really talking so much about that as we are the illegalities. That's the issue that many of these senators have. And I think it's important to distinction between just kind of election fraud, you know, that, you know, the death vote and all of that. We're not really talking about that. We're talking about the fact that in Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 of the Constitution, it specifically states that it is the legislature that is to decide whether the electors in this election. And so, in other words, that's the constitutional language. And these senators and congressmen are saying, hold on. Election law was not made by these state legislatures. It was made by governors and attorney generals and state election officials, and that's not the way you do it. That is unconstitutional, and it happened a couple of months before the election. That's the main beef. So it's voting illegalities is what they're going to call it, not so much election fraud.
But hasn't it already been litigated? I'll take Pennsylvania as an example. In Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Supreme Court ultimately was the legislature. They weren't in a judicial role. They essentially laid out what the absentee ballot procedure would be, but that's been litigated, and the president lost it. Isn't that cutting any ice with these senators?
A couple of different things on that. When you say litigated, I guess it depends what you mean by litigated. It was rejected by the courts, but they never got to an evidentiary hearing. So these senators and the Trump campaign will argue that they never got a chance to even present the evidence And so I think, when you talk about litigation, yes, technically the courts have rejected some of these motions. The state legislatures, as it relates to House and Senate leadership in these states, even Republican House and state leadership has decided not to challenge any of these electoral votes. So, they have struck out each and every turn, Gordon, for sure. And that's why they're hoping this is one last chance, not necessarily to make Donald Trump the president of the United States, but a chance to at least bring up some of these illegalities the way they see it, because they believe that if they have an oath to the Constitution and they believe the Constitution has been violated, then they believe they have a right to step up and say so.
Well, at the end of the day, what's your prediction? Is Biden going to be president or not?
Gordon, I always like how you try to get me in the prediction business. I love that, Gordon. You know what? Am I allowed to plead the fifth? I mean, can I do that? I don't know.
I don't think there's any underlying crime for a prediction on this.
Look,
so the fifth, you can't plead the fifth.
Yeah, how about this, Gordon? I'll say it this way. We were in the Hail Mary stage before. We've talked about the Hail Mary from the 50-yard line. Let's put the Hail Mary now back at the 20-yard line. In other words, further back, 80 yards into the end zone instead of 50 yards. I mean, obviously, it does not look possible. Having said that, you just never know because, and here's why. I mean, this is the hope. All right, this is the hope that the senators and the Trump campaign and all, they'll have their day in court, like I said, in front of Congress, and that they'll make the argument. And then we see if the public opinion switches or senators come on board. But you're not going to get 50 United States senators at all to agree to this. You have 13, you might get up to 15, 16, but you need 50, and you're not going to get there. So at that point, you're kind of stuck. So I don't see it happening. But then again, never say never. It's a James Bond movie, I believe.
Well, I'm with you on never say never, but at the same time, I don't even think this is on the 20-yard line. I think the team is trying to throw a pass from outside the stadium. The Senate Majority Leader has already said this is dead on arrival, and assuming he's still the Senate Majority Leader after Georgia's election, that means it's dead on arrival. They'll get their chance because under Senate procedural rules, they're allowed that. So they'll get a hearing. But at the end of the day, I think the vote's already counted, isn't it?
Well, yeah, for sure. And there's going to be a lot of talk about Mike Pence, and this is controversial. There's a certain wing, I'll call it a wing of MAGA Nation, that believes that Mike Pence has the unilateral authority to reject these electoral votes. The folks that I'm talking to, conservative and liberal, both constitutional scholars, say he doesn't. There might be a constitutional path. If you look, you can make the constitutional argument and take it to the Supreme Court that Mike Pence has the unilateral authority to reject these envelopes. That's what Louis Gohmert and others try to do, if you will. But ultimately, that doesn't seem like it's going anywhere. And I can tell you this: I can't name my sources, but I'll just say that I've talked to quite a few people close to the vice president. Who indeed say, don't expect the vice president to unilaterally say he's going to reject these votes. And by the way, let me just say, this idea that there's going to be two envelopes in front of him, dueling electors, if you will, that's not true. That's out there. It's not true. There'll be one envelope in front of him that is certified by the states that have for Biden electors. These other 7 states we've heard about that are, quote, dueling electors, they were never sent to the National Archives. They were never sent at all to the Senate. So he won't have that envelope in front of him. There won't be a choice for the vice president on Wednesday, January 6th.
All right. Well, David, it's been fun putting you on the hot seat, and thank you for all your insights. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Gordon. Always enjoyed this, Gordon. You know that.
Well, you can get the latest on all the political theater coming out of Washington, D.C. by downloading the CBN News Channel app, and you can do it today and get the latest on the results coming in from Georgia. It should be very interesting. Hello, I'm Gordon Robertson. Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more encouraging videos like this one. Welcome to the 700 Club Interactive family, and God bless you.